Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Crazy Liar Dad Finds Out Where I Live and Attempts to Give My Apartment to His Random Friends Without My Knowledge. To add some context, I'm F25 and my parents are so crazy to the point to where me and the majority of my family had to cut them off. For me personally, my dad completely, and my mom calls on occasion. My mom also tries to overstep, such as inviting him to family events he's specifically not invited to. The reason is he tries to steer every conversation and attempts to talk about himself. People usually don't care or want to hear them. He argues with people, threatens their lives. And she purposely does these things knowing they'll cause an argument, and she gets joy out of it. So, needless to say, sane people don't want these issues in their lives. My dad is delusional and narcissistic to the point where he thinks he's famous and claims everyone runs up to him for pictures and says he's famous and someone he knows is making a movie about him. Lies about it, obviously, because no one has ever seen this and it's a running joke. People laugh at him, he thinks it's with him, not at him. He's lost all of his friends due to his poor behavior, such as arguments, belittling, non-stop phone calls. But to the story of his lies and delusions. I have an apartment, and I didn't give him my address because we aren't on speaking terms, and he threatened my life because I wouldn't give him my personal info, so he could take out loans in my name. Like, that's an obvious no. Also, I didn't grow up with him, so I barely know him. He has apparently told people he has an apartment, mine, that he lets his daughter, me, live in. This is what I've been told. He likes to pretend to be a big shot. So, I guess he told some people who needed a place to live they could stay at his spare apartment. He got my address from a family member, I assume my mom, due to the fact that no one I know speaks to him. One day, I get a call from my apartment building manager saying there are some people at the gate saying they're here to move into your unit. Is this correct? I was just as confused as she seemed, as well as the people he sent to live at my place. He somehow thinks it's his place. Mind you, it's my place. I pay the bills, and I didn't even know he knew my address. So I go out to meet these said guests, as there was much confusion. These three people, three random sketchy, older-looking men. Side note, I would at most let a friend stay a few nights if needed, not random strange men. I ask, what's going on? My building manager stayed because she wanted to know what's going on and wanted to help sort it out. And she would also know who's moving in and out because she's in charge of leasing, and the building isn't that big. We all know each other. The three men proceed to tell me they're moving in their place, we're here for the keys. His daughter, right? He said you'd be out by the time we got here and keys would be at the front desk. We all looked and I said, do you see a front desk? I asked to see what was the address. We thought maybe wrong address? Nope, my address. So the guy said, your dad said he kicked you out because you're freeloading and he had you leave the keys at the non-existent front desk. By this time, all five of us were confused, but they had my address. I said, he doesn't even have my address, so I don't know how he got it. By this time, they're trying to call him to sort it out. He's not answering at the moment. So, I explained to them, I don't know how you or he got this address. I haven't spoken to him in about a year, and I don't know how I'm freeloading or what he's told you. But this is my place. I don't know what's going on. Y'all need to figure it out with him, but I have no place for you. Sorry. They tried to get me to call him. I said no, and calling won't change anything, and this isn't my problem, so I can't help you. By the way, they didn't seem threatening. It was just random and weird for all. I hear one guy on the phone talking to my dad. I hear him telling him she's lying, etc. Ask her to show you the lease. At this point, me, one of the guys, and my building manager are all looking like, this is odd, and he looks embarrassed. My manager stepped in at this time, luckily. She told the men, you all must have the wrong place. She's on the lease, the only one. You'll all have to leave and sort it out. I can say, despite them looking sketchy initially, they were as calm as could be in their odd situation. Because, in all honesty, the only fault they had was believing my dad. They thought they were moving into an apartment for free. If I was in that situation, I wouldn't be happy either. After apologizing and before leaving, I heard one of them saying, I knew something was up, he's always lying. I asked, what did he tell you? One of the men said he told me he had a spot for him to move in, all furnished and paid for up to the rest of the year. I kicked my daughter out because she's freeloading but claimed he couldn't get out of the lease. I said something like, well, like your friend said, he is a liar. I don't know how, why, and what made him do this. I never gave him my address. He isn't on a lease. I don't even talk to him. So, I'm sorry, but hope it works out. I don't know what my dad thought would happen. But like I said, he's delusional. He probably assumed all he was saying was true. Or maybe he assumed there was a front desk and whoever was at the front desk would just magically let 3 random people in. And I'd have no say? It's also crazy that I can't even attempt to understand. There's no use, lol. Also, I told my manager thanks, and if anyone ever comes when I'm not home, please give me a call or call 911. If I have a guest coming, I'll be home to greet them. The next story is titled, Neighbor Demolished My Cabin and Stole My Land While I Was Absent. He Loses Everything. The Plot to Steal My Land. A story of betrayal, courage, and triumph. I never could have imagined the dark turn of events that would come from a gift from my grandfather. I was gifted with a piece of land that had been in our family for generations, a small piece of paradise that I had been visiting since I was a child. I was overjoyed at the idea of owning a piece of my family's heritage and decided that I wanted to keep it for myself. I didn't want to live on the land full-time, but I couldn't bear to part with it, so I decided to build a cozy cabin where I could escape to for a few days each year. At first, everything seemed perfect. The surrounding community was friendly and welcoming, including my grandfather's old neighbor who offered to keep an eye on the land when I wasn't there. I took him up on his offer, grateful for the extra set of eyes to keep an eye on my little piece of heaven. Little did I know that he had something far more sinister in mind. 2 years after receiving the land, I made the journey down to my cabin for a much-needed break. When I arrived, I was shocked to find that my cabin was gone, replaced by a large, imposing house that took up the entire property. I approached the door, rang the doorbell, and was greeted by a man who appeared confused by my presence. "What are you doing here?" he asked, with a hint of suspicion in his voice. "That's what I was going to ask you," I replied. "This is my land, and I want to know what's going on." The man told me that the land wasn't mine and that it belonged to his cousin. He warned me that if I tried to come back, he wouldn't be so polite the next time. I was intimidated by the man's size and didn't want to get into a physical altercation, so I backed off and sat in my car, feeling lost and confused. It was then that another of my grandfather's neighbors walked by and recognized me. She invited me in for a meal and told me the whole story. It turned out that the man who had answered the door was part of a plot to steal my land. He had spread false stories about being my grandfather's closest friend and that he had been left the land. He had even gone so far as to forge fake documents to prove his claims. While I was away, he had demolished my cabin and built a house for his family to use. I was filled with a sense of anger and determination. I knew that I had to fight for what was rightfully mine, and I wouldn't stop until I had won. I went into town and spent the next few days gathering evidence and fighting to prove that the land was mine. Eventually, I was successful, and the family was forced to leave the house that had been built illegally on my land. However, my fight was far from over. I had to sue the man for tearing down my cabin, building a house illegally on my land, and using my land without permission. He tried to argue that the land was legally abandoned because I wasn't there to maintain it, but I was able to show the actual papers that proved it was mine. In the end, I won the case and made sure that the man was held accountable for his actions. I was able to reclaim my land and make sure that my family's legacy would continue. But I wasn't satisfied with just reclaiming my land and making the man pay for his actions. I wanted to teach him a lesson that he would never forget, so I rebuilt my cabin, but this time I made it stronger and more beautiful than ever. I wanted to show him that I wouldn't be defeated, that I was stronger than the trials he had put me through. The day I moved into my cabin was one of the proudest moments of my life. The man who had betrayed me and tried to steal my land saw what I had done and knew that he had lost. He had underestimated the power of a person who stood up for what was right and wouldn't be defeated by adversity. My story became a legend in the small community, and people often came to visit and hear about the incredible courage and triumph that I had shown. I was proud to be known as the person who stood up to a corrupt system and won. And every time I looked out the window of my cabin, I was reminded of the incredible journey I had taken and the lesson I had learned. That no one can take away what is rightfully yours, and that if you stand up for what you believe in, you can overcome any obstacle. The next story is titled, Entitled Ex-Husband Gets What He Deserves. After dealing with my husband, 29M, cheating on me and loudly disrespecting me for 2 years, I, 23F, finally left him 4 months ago. He assumed no responsibility for the marital bills, and I had to sell the house and his truck by myself. When I left him, there was also a $400 phone bill in both of our names. I ended up just paying the overdue bill a few months ago under the stipulation that my ex-husband gives me $200 for his share. He did give me $90, but then he laughed at me for expecting him to pay the other $110, stating that he doesn't owe me anything. About a week ago, I went into the store of my current cell phone provider and learned that I am paying twice as much as I should be paying for phone service because I'm still being charged $40 a month for my ex-husband's phone. There's still $800 plus owed on it. I learned that the remaining balance was not transferred over when he switched his phone number to his own account because he failed to sign the required paperwork. I explained the situation to my ex-husband, and he was more than willing to join a conference call with me and customer service to get the remaining balance transferred to his own account. We had spent approximately 20 minutes on the phone before my ex-husband told the customer service woman that he's making payments on his own phone through his own account, that he doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about, and that whatever I have called to inquire about, it is clearly not even his business. Then he hung up. So today, I spoke with customer service again and learned that I technically own my ex-husband's phone, since it is in my name. So I made a police report, I reported the phone as stolen, and it is now flagged and shut off. The last story is titled, I Don't Care What You Are, You Can't Park in My Spot. I am a paramedic in a place that has some HOAs and apartment complexes. We hate responding to the apartment complexes because there's nothing but assigned parking and no fire zones. Basically, if we can't find a space to fit in, we have to block the road. My agency also uses first responder vehicles and ambulances. The first responder, as implied, usually arrives first, so we do our best to leave room for the ambulance to fit in. We get a call at the apartment complex, I am in the first responder. As I pull up to the address, by some miracle, there is a spot only 2 apartments away. Great, I can leave the road clear for the ambulance. As soon as I park, out comes this guy screaming I can't park there. I do the, "Are you serious?" look and just say medical emergency. He says he doesn't care, I can't park there. Keep in mind, my vehicle has enough lights to make a Christmas tree jealous. I just grab my stuff, lock the vehicle, and keep going. He's screaming he's going to call the cops. I tell him they're already on the way. They respond to medical emergencies. Cop gets there while I'm in the patent and tells him basically to pound salt. The cop enters the apartment, and then this guy really goes full-blown entitled. He enters the apartment, comes into the room where I'm treating the patient. He starts ranting and raving about how I have to move my vehicle. I look at the cop and say, "Get him out of here." The cop then seals his fate. She asks the patient if she wants this person removed from the apartment and did she ever give consent for him to enter. The patient's response, "Get him the duck out, he's trespassing." Boom, all clear. The cop gives him one last chance and tells him to leave or he will be arrested. He doubles down. I am on the HOA board. I can go where I please. At this point, backup is called. The cop at least manhandles him out of the room. The ambulance arrives with PD backup and they get him out of the apartment so we can safely remove the patient. Not entirely sure what happened next as I was in the back of the ambulance, but when I got out, one of the officers approaches and says, "Sorry, but we need another bus. We had to tase him." Policy for PD is if they tase someone, they have to be transported to the hospital by ambulance as the taser spikes have to be surgically removed due to the barbs on them. Wait for the second ambulance, they take him, I go back in service. Found out a few weeks later he was charged with trespassing, assaulting an officer, resisting arrest, interference with government administration, aka interfering with the scene of an emergency. All over a parking space that I would have been in for all of 20 minutes if he hadn't created problems. I can only assume he took a plea deal as I was never called to testify. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.